In episode 46, I introduced you to testimony that I was given by a witness who was staying at the Delano Hotel on the night of the Las Vegas shooting. This witness, who I simply identified as Delano source number 3, had a friend who had left the Delano in an Uber taxi and called my source number 3, from inside that car at exactly 9:55 p.m. because she had just seen multiple men with guns at the intersection of Mandalay Bay Road and Las Vegas Boulevard. Now, this was before the shooting started from the Mandalay Bay. And it took place roughly between entrances 1 and 2 at the concert venue. This was along Las Vegas Boulevard. She was stuck in traffic. It was heavy traffic because of the concert and everything that was going on in Vegas that night. Now, source number 3 told me that he could hear gunfire over the cell phone as he and his friend were speaking. And this conversation took place, of course, well before, roughly 10 minutes before 10:05 p.m., which is when we're told that the gunfire erupted from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay. But because the traffic was heavy, there was no chance of moving, at least not for a few minutes. The woman jumped out of the Uber, ran the opposite direction away from where she saw the gunman. She ran toward the Luxor hotel to try and get inside for safety. And to demonstrate that the testimony of this woman is not just some isolated theory that only she came up with, take a look at what you can see in this screenshot. This is a screenshot taken by a taxi driver at 10:21 p.m. And as you can see from these earliest minutes after the shooting, the taxi dispatch was sending out a message that there were multiple reports coming in of at least 3 different gunmen at various locations along Las Vegas Boulevard between Mandalay Bay and Tropicana Avenues. The 4 hotels that sit up on that corner, they're the 4 corner lots at the intersection, are the Excalibur, the Tropicana, the MGM Grand, and New York, New York. And of course, there are quite a few other hotels close to that intersection. And of course, we know that there were rampant reports of multiple shots being fired along the Strip, including down just a little bit at the Bellagio Hotel, which is a subject that I'm going to be returning to in a subsequent video, because some new footage has come to me, some new testimony has come available to support the original claims that had been made by Renee Downs that there was at least one shooter down at the Bellagio. Well, throughout the night, police themselves, they remained confused as to where exactly the shots were coming from. They knew, of course, there was something coming from the Mandalay Bay, but it wasn't just the Mandalay Bay that they were concerned about. Just like the civilians thought that gunshots were coming from multiple directions, even some of the police who were at the venue itself thought that they were being fired upon from different directions, including from the direction of the Luxor Hotel. I'm going to play an audio of one police officer asking dispatch if there's been any confirmation yet about shots being directed at the police, because they had thought that some of these shots were coming from the direction of the Luxor.
We confirmed with the Luxor that nobody heard shots over there. When we were down getting shot at, we wanted that checked.
So while it's possible that the police were simply confused about where the shots were coming from, I just want to emphasize that with the testimony of the woman in the Uber, that there were gunmen firing outside of the concert venue between gates 1 and 2, that might explain why police thought that shots were coming from the direction of the Luxor, which would be directly across the street between exits or entrances 1 and 2. But we'll set that aside. What I really want to focus on briefly in this episode is what happened to the woman after she fled the taxi. And again, for simplicity, we're just going to call her Delano source number 4. Source number 4 made her way across Las Vegas Boulevard. She got over to the Luxor, found shelter inside. She first hid inside of a vending machine room I think she was tucked between the wall and an ice machine. But after a while, as the hotel security officers came through clearing the floors, clearing the rooms, they came in and found her in this room. And so they directed her down where they were sending everyone else. And that was down into the basement of the Luxor. The hallways were painted white. She said, looks like a typical industrial basement, something that the employees there at the hotel probably were familiar with, that they went into, but not something that hotel guests would normally see. And she sent several Snapchat pictures to my other source number 3, showing him where she was in the building. Well, this same activity of hotels moving people into basements, that was repeated all up and down the strip as events were unfolding there that night. And the photos that I'm going to show you here, these were actually from the Tropicana Hotel down the street. Civilians were locked down in these different hotel basements and the various room facilities, such as the Michael Jackson Theater, for example, at the Mandalay Bay. And they were left there for several hours. And during that time, the occupants used their cell phones to call family, to call friends, to look at news, to find out what was going on. And what many of the people report is that it was quite quiet. People were rather quiet, especially at the Luxor. And that's the story told by a man who had a story written about him in a newspaper in Texas. It was the Amarillo Globe News, and it featured the testimony of this guy named John King, because he was in the Luxor while the shooting was going on. So according to King, he and some of his friends, they were there in Vegas to attend a wedding. They had been inside the Luxor casino the night of the shooting. But around 10 o'clock, roughly, just before 10, they decided to step outside to get some fresh air, give the gambling a break for a few minutes. So King reported, after he went outside, hearing loud popping sounds. He didn't immediately identify them as gunshots. He knew there was something, but couldn't quite tell what it was. And these are probably the shots that others were reporting having heard that sounded like firecrackers. These may have been the shots that were being directed at the fuel tanks. But then the continuous gun volley started, and his party ran back inside of the Luxor. And in the case of the Luxor, the people inside the hotel, in addition to these gunshots, they heard reports that a car might be rigged with a bomb outside the hotel. Mr. King says that despite the gunfire that was right outside of the Luxor, when they first went in, and we'll come back to that car bomb in a second, but when they first went in, what he said really struck him was that just immediately inside the hotel, nobody knew what was going on. You've got the rapid gunfire going on outside, just across the street from the Mandalay Bay. But the people inside, there was so much noise, they had no idea what was going on. And that's an important thing to remember, an important point, because we're going to discuss how people over a mile away heard gunshots very clearly, which indicates that the gunfire that they heard was separate from what was happening way down at the concert venue. Well, King said that after more people ran into the Luxor for safety, the hotel eventually became alerted. They saw the panic happening, and so they started to implement their security measures, which was first to close off the exits, and they started moving people down into the basement, people who didn't have rooms, or at least people who couldn't get to the elevators to get up to their room in time. So King was down in the basement with around 200 or so people. Now, our source number 4, who saw the gunman outside of the hotel out there, she was one of those in the basement with Mr. King. The hotel security wouldn't let them leave, though. The staff brought them things like pillows and blankets to try and comfort them, but the staff would not talk about the shooting, the things that they were hearing were going on. I guess trying to keep things calm. Well, it was during the hours between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. that these people were locked inside the Luxor basement. After 3 a.m., those who were guests at the Luxor itself, the people that already had rooms there, they were allowed to leave the basement to go back to their rooms, but they were not allowed to leave the hotel itself. That remained locked down. And those people like source number 4 who were not guests at the Luxor, they had to stay down in the basement. Well, here's a short clip that was recorded by an actor named Gil Darnell. He was in the Luxor while this was happening. And this clip, we can see down in the corner, you can see the time, showing that this clip would have been recorded at 2:35 a.m., and that's Vegas time.
Have your attention, please. The Luxor is still on lockdown. Please do not leave the building. We'll keep you advised. Thank you.
Now, while source number 4 and the people were on lockdown inside the Luxor, police had received a report that 4 suspicious men had gotten out of a vehicle at the Luxor and left naturally on foot. The people who witnessed this told the police that the reason they were concerned was not only the behavior of the 4 men, but that the car itself had wires sticking out of it in such a way that it made it look like there may be a car bomb there. So the police called the report into dispatch. So I'm going to play the audio for you of that, but because it's a little fuzzy, let me tell you what you're going to hear. Here's the quote. The officer says, "Hey, a citizen just advised me a vehicle, black Audi, in the valet at the Luxor possibly has a 445. 445 is the police code for a bomb." The quote continues, "She said it has wires sticking out, so don't let any officers go through the valet at Luxor." So the concern here was that whoever was part of this plot in Vegas had set up a car there with a car bomb to try and kill policemen as they entered the Luxor. Here's the audio.
Hey, citizens just advised me a vehicle, black Audi, in the valley of the Luxor possibly has a 445. He said has wires sticking out, so don't let any officers go through the valet of the Luxor.
I mean, officers do not go to the valet of the Luxor. There's possibly a black vehicle with a 445. There's wires hanging out.
Now, I also have a separate audio recording of a police scanner that has information about that car bomb. Let me play that for you as well.
Advised bomb squad to deal with the issue over there at Luxor, reference the 445 device. And I've got FBI SWAT, Henderson SWAT, and North Las Vegas SWAT en route to our staging area.
And about 20 minutes later, we have a report of a man with a gun who is seen inside the Luxor Hotel in a restroom. And in this audio clip, you're going to hear the code 413. A 413 is code for a person with a gun.
Control 1 Robert 18 at security talking to me right now. They stated that a person saw a male with a 413 inside the Luxor male's restroom.
All right. Now, about a half hour after the sighting of the man with the gun inside the Luxor, we hear some audio from dispatch talking a little more information about this possible car bomb. Let me play this for you.
Control 811, can you copy an update on the 445?
Okay, 811.
The plate's going to be Adam Charlie 0027, Nevada. It's on a newer model black Audi SUV. Break. The car was dropped off at 2213 hours in the valet from Luxor. Break. 4 individuals got out, 4 males, and ready to help the descriptions. The first is an AMA with a beige shirt and green shorts. The second is an AMA, black shirt, khaki shorts. The third is an AMA with a yellow and black shirt and khaki shorts. The fourth is a WMA with a T-shirt, dark shorts, a hat, and a beard. Luxor security is currently backtracking video to find out where they went.
Control 213 Armor.
213 Armor.
confirming all four of those individuals left the newer Audi in front of the Luxor?
They left it at the valet Luxor.
Okay, so here's what we learned from this exchange. At 10:13 p.m., while gunfire is still mowing people down at the concert, this new-looking black Audi SUV with Nevada plate AC0027 pulls into the valet at the front of the Luxor. 4 men got out of the vehicle. They left the car unattended. No valet was there to take it. Clearly, there was major action going on. So 3 of the men were described as Asian, possibly Middle Eastern. The 4th person in the party was white. At least one of them had a beard and a cap. Inside the Luxor basement, our source number 4, she had heard reports of this possible car bomb. And clearly others knew about it too because they tweeted out about it on social media. And you can see this in various screenshots. But despite the audio of even the police calling in a bomb squad to check out the vehicle, the Las Vegas Police Department has refused to say anything publicly about the incident, to my knowledge. They haven't said anything one way or another. We are simply meant to all pretend that there was no bomb scare. The issue I have with this is that the problem of the silence by the officials has compounded the problem because both mainstream media outlets and internet trolls, they're pouncing on everyone out there. Anyone who dares to say, yes, I heard about the bomb scare. They jump on them, call them liars, just nastiness. But I also have this video, even in the daylight, the morning of October 2nd, we can see that morning several police cruisers racing to a staging point just outside of that Luxor valet. So what I want to know is, did the bomb squad discover a bomb in the back of in that black SUV or not? What were the strange wires that caused the scare? Who were the men who exited the vehicle and ran away from the scene when it would have made a lot more sense during the shooting to simply stay put inside the vehicle and drive to safety in the other direction? Why would they pull up there and get out and take off like that? Perhaps there's just a very rational story for it, but the silence on this is why we have to keep looking at it until we get some answers, especially given that the Luxor Hotel itself, their parking garage, that was the site of a 2007 bombing. Now, there was a bomb that was set off, killed a man, ended up 2 conspirators went to prison over it. So you'd think that the Las Vegas PD would be a little more sensitive and forthcoming on this story and let us know what actually happened. So if any of you have additional information about this bomb scare, either way, I don't care if it proves it, validates it, or refutes it. I would just like to be able to check this item off my list if it was just a false or incorrect report. And if you have any information on that plate, let me know. I haven't been able to locate Nevada plate AC0027 myself as I've done the vehicle checks. Now, while source number 4 was locked inside the Luxor, another source I spoke to witnessed a SWAT team inside the corridor between the Delano and the Mandalay Bay, and he heard gunshots. And like 2 of my other witnesses, this source also smelled a strong odor of gunpowder inside the facility there, and he's quite certain there was some kind of shootout that took place inside the building. So we're going to examine his story in our next episode. For the End Times News Report, I'm Jake Morphonios.